African community, and that was for everybody, no matter what religion or background it was. And then he formed the Muslim Mosque Incorporated and everything to with it. And I was able to meet some of them, not to brag too much, but I was able to meet his wife, Dr. Betty Shabazz. She returned to God, she returned for a law. That woman, and I know we're talking about Malcolm, we're talking about a man, but you women, and I said you women respectfully, they said behind every man is a good woman, nah. They said beside every man is a good woman, nah. In front, all of you all here, every man is a good woman. And Betty Shabazz, she was a very strong, intelligent woman. She was a dean of a college in New York City. And she was very, but I'm gonna cut it short, but the thing is that I was at a seminar, a meeting, and she was talking about when her husband was murdered. That was a very hard time for her, a very hard time. I see a book here, and I advise you all to get this book. I Buried Malcolm X. If you all seen the film with when he was being buried, the brother was like in Muslim Arab dress and everything. It was Sheikh Isham Jabba. This is him right here. He's the one who grabbed Malcolm's body because nobody really wanted to bury. They were scared at the time. But he grabbed Malcolm's body, washed his body, shrouded his body, and prepared him for the we call it janazah, the Islamic funeral and whatnot. And I was able to meet this Sheikh here, Sheikh Isham Jabba, African American Sheikh, very knowledgeable, but he had passed away too and everything. But we still have people among us, I was a little bit younger, that some of you here, that knew Malcolm or walked with Malcolm or was close with Malcolm and everything. That's one of the things why I say that he would never die. But as I was saying, he traveled overseas, he developed his religious strength and his revolutionary principle. When he came back with a beard. He was constantly evolving. He formed, like I said, the Organization of African American Unity. It was telling black people to register to vote. Now here's something very interesting. He was telling black people when he formed it to register to vote, but not as a Republican or a Democrat. He knew something was wrong with the system. He knew that the two-party system was based on white supremacy. He knew it was based on white racism. He knew the government structure was oppressive and dangerous. He told us we must do for ourselves, and nobody was going to save us but Allah. He told us a change had to come. And this famous saying we all know, Malcolm said a change had to come. What did he say? By any means necessary. Take that as you want to take it. The idea Malcolm was putting forth was for us to follow the actions of struggle. And that's why it's important we have organizations and things like this. You got to be part of something to make a change. This here, with this meet here, is not insignificant. This is the continue. We might idolize somebody and put them on a pedestal. And Malcolm wasn't about that. He wanted to see us organize and continue to fight for our freedom. Continue to fight for it. Keep focused. You can't sit here and say everybody can play a part in doing something. Even if it's just, I read the civil rights movement where if somebody would just open a letter or typing or whatever it was, feeding people, you have to take part to make a change. God commands us.
All right.
But you got it though.
That you got it.
All right, great sister, great.
Don't worry about it, you got it.
Come on, Reginald East Side. That's what I'm talking about.
All right, so next up, got my brother here. Give it up for him.
As we say in Islam, alhamdulillah, all praise is due to Allah. All praise is due to God at all times. We are people of believers in the faith that God has got us here. And this day is a great day. They say Malcolm is dead. Malcolm is not dead. I'm going to prove it to you from the Quran in a few minutes that he is not dead. It's about me. I was running on CP time. I think some of y'all know about CP time. I have to sit down because the legs don't work. Y'all know Arthur? Last name Brightest?
She my friend.
Oh, he does. Yeah, I think we all got to be friends. We don't be looking for him, but he's there. Indeed, this is a great day in terms of remembrance of our honorable brother. And I'm going to start just a little bit. I'm not trying not to be too long. I'm trying to base my short talk on the character of Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. In the name of God, I bear witness that there is no God but God, and I bear witness that Muhammad ibn Abdullah 1400 years ago was the messenger, last messenger of God. Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz, better known as Malcolm X, was well known for social justice and admired for his black freedom struggle. He was constantly involving in struggle. His public life was 12 years. He was very analytical. The last year of the 11 months of his life, we are studying about his life still till this day. That's why we're here today. I think some of you already know, tomorrow, May 19th, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's his birthday. Yes. Yeah. Is that for 100 years?
100 years.
And dealing with civic engagement, he was one of the best examples. He was murdered at the age of 39. He was internationally renowned. He would analyze and come up with formula to which way forward in the black freedom struggle. He was the national representative of the Nation of Islam from 1952 until March 1964, under the stern leadership of Elijah Muhammad. He could not form his personal political opinion until he left that organization in March of 1964. He freed himself of any constraints of the Nation of Islam. He began to form his ideology of nationalism, black nationalism. He performed the Hajj in 1964. This is a deviate, this quick something. I made Hajj, in fact, my name is El-Hajj Samori Abdul Salam. Malcolm had a little bit to do something with it, but I made Hajj in 1993, pilgrimage to Mecca, which Muslims do to worship God in the first house of worship here on earth. And I met an Arab brother, and he told me, he was an old man, he told me he walked with Malcolm. That helped him to develop a transformation, not only form his religious view, but his progressive political based on that Malcolm Al-Hajj Shabazz, he's confirmed, he said, I am a Muslim. We used to speak and say, he used to speak and say, Assalamu alaikum, which means peace be unto you. And I am still, this is Malcolm words, kind of paraphrasing, but he said, I am still a Muslim. My religion is Islam. especially the last year of his life, he emphasized the importance of the Shahada. The Shahada is what one takes in Islam to enter the faith of Islam. I bear witness that there is no God but God, and I bear witness that Muhammad is the last prophet. Muhammad is last. In Islam, we believe in all the prophets of God. We believe, some people have a misconception, we believe in Jesus, Abraham, Moses, everybody. There's no Islam without Jesus. There's no Islam without Muhammad. There's no Islam without Abraham and everything. So when he said the last prophet, we are taught that the last prophet that God had sent to mankind was the prophet Muhammad. But Malcolm, he let you know in his own words about his religious faith. The prophet, peace be upon him, said, Prophet Muhammad said, the best, and this is pertaining to Malcolm, the Prophet Muhammad said a long time ago, he said, the best of words you speak is to a taghut. And a taghut is an oppressor. And Malcolm was a man who spoke to the taghut. He was unfearful, he was daunting, and he was non-compromising. The idea that Malcolm had put forth was something that we still have to, again, take forth. Malcolm, to end it off, coming to an end, Malcolm was an internationalist. He understood the world around him. He understood the world around us. He stood for all oppressed people around the world. He knew the capitalists were confronted with many struggles in this world of liberation, and it's not just in Palestine and Gaza, but he spoke many times. I know some people got speeches here dealing, I mean, back then, we're talking about the 60s and the 50s, okay? And one of the things I know you all have heard, there's so many things he said. I'm glad that Sister Shea brought his words to life. Listen to the ballot or the bullet. When you go home or what, listen to the ballot or the bullet. Number one, when you hear that speech by Al-Hajj Malik Shabbat, it's like he's here today. I'm not going to go into what it is, but that is one of his greatest speeches, talk about the two-party system and how it's not going to do anything. I'm not going to go into it, but that speech is important, the ballot or the bullet. Y'all got a problem, because I used to say, because I didn't believe in voting at one time until Jesse Jackson came along, and I used to say, because I was a revolutionary, still am. And I said, when I heard the speech, I said, if Malcolm here, I would tell him I vote for the bullet. But that's another story. I'm a peaceful man. I'm a peaceful man. I believe in peace. He stood for all oppressed people. He knew that the capitalists operated a blood-sucking system that benefited a small minority of people. He understood we all have to be involved locally, nationally, internationally. We have to organize. He stood for reparations. I think his speech, he did go to the UN. He stood for reparations. And I advise you all to please take up that fight. We are old. We didn't ask to come here. What Marcus said, we didn't come here. Plymouth Rock landed on us. But I also found, studying history, the person that helped lead them was an African Muslim, because the Africans at that time were great navigators and everything, and they knew, so it was like it was a Muslim, even with that crazy dude talking about he discovered America and committed genocide against the Native Americans and Africans and everything. He had a Muslim that was a navigator. See, they don't want to tell you things. Then you got that fool in office. He want to crush the truth, but the truth will rise again. The truth will rise again. You can't crush what God puts out here. But just to continue on, but he knew that the system, the capital system, was a blood-sucking system that only benefited a small group of people. He understood we all have to be involved locally, nationally, internationally. We have to organize. He stood for reparations for African American people. The formula has been set forth, I'm coming to an end. The formula has been set forth by Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz in Islam, political, and so what are we going to do? There is a verse in the Quran, and I just said to you all earlier that I'm going to prove to you that he's not dead. We all know that he was murdered in the Audubon ballroom. By me used to live in Harlem. I was able, to see that ballroom. And that was like his last speech. But there's a verse in the Quran that says this, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, in the name of Allah, the merciful. The verse goes like this, very short verse by God. He said, do not say about those who are slain in the cause of Allah, in the cause of God. Do not say they are dead. Nay, they are alive, but you perceive it not. May Allah be our guide, and his last prophet also helped to be our guide. Muslims, Malcolm's last word was Assalamu alaikum, and that's what I say to you. And anything that I have said that was good, informative, it all comes from God. Anything that I said that was wrong or misunderstood, it comes from me. I'm glad your brothers and sisters, I'm glad the organization is representing our brother. He will never die. But even if we think people are going, remember, we are people of the hereafter in paradise. The struggle continues. Allahu Akbar. All praise to the people. And as we recently in the day, all power to the people. Black power. That's it. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be unto you.
I'm sorry, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I am Belinda Miller. I am the owner of Turning Page Bookshop. We were in Goose Creek. No, we were in Seneca, in Goose Creek, and now we're in West Ashley. I am the owner of the only black-owned brick-and-mortar online bookmobile bookstore in the state of South Carolina. Thank you. I'm not gonna say it's not easy. It's still a struggle. But as someone who was born and raised in DC, the job moved me down here. And yep, I'm one of those federal government employees that, we don't know we're gonna have a job from day to day, but I don't worry about it. I give it to God, so I don't worry about that. I'm trying to keep my business going. The reason I started my bookstore business is Malcolm X was the strongest, voracious reader you have ever seen and heard about. That man would read anything that came across his hand, especially when he was put in prison. And that is one of the reasons he is and will always be and will still be alive today because of what he read and how he's able to fight. And that is my fight. That's a fight that I got from watching my parents, grandparents, in the neighborhoods that I grew up in, that we didn't have access to books. My grandmother and grandfather were not allowed in libraries. So I took up the banner when I was able to buy this bookstore to say, no kid is gonna go in this state, which is number 4 for the lowest literacy in the United States, to let these kids go without books. Now, I know books are expensive. I know everything is expensive. And that is the reason my manager and I try our best to keep prices as low as we can. Because if you go to my website has the same books that Amazon has. You can just go and type up any book in there. Because I was determined to have a website that looks just like Amazon. Nope, I can't sell my book for $10. Sometimes I can, sometimes I cannot. The idea of me owning a bookstore is my parents and grandparents were not allowed to go to libraries. My parents and my grandparents were not allowed in bookstores. And I was determined that you're not going to turn away my bookstore. And because, as Malcolm X said in the 60s, and it's still going on today, they're trying to shut bookstores down. They're trying to shut libraries down. So my job is to make sure that we have books available. Sometimes they're free. Sometimes we have to sell it so we can still pay rent where we're at. But the idea of Malcolm X is, if I don't teach these kids how to read and how to use their intellect, whether they use the bullet or the ballot, they got to learn. Because this fight is the same fight we've been fighting for over 400 years. And we cannot stop fighting for our education, for our kids to learn, for us to support black businesses, to support small businesses. Stop spending your money in a business that don't treat you well, that doesn't care about you. Stop listening to all these, influencers telling you, well, you can make money rich this way. No, you cannot. We have to support each other. We have to come together and fight this big fight. Now, one of the things that was happening in the 50s and the 60s is the FBI came after black bookstores. And guess what's happening in 2025? They're coming after black bookstores. Now, this is the first book of this year, talking about black bookstores. From the very first bookstore that was opened up by a black slave in 1869 to now. So now they're fighting us. In Texas, they are trying their best to close bookstores. They don't want bookstores to sell LGBTQ. They don't want to sell books that, is a part of the woke community. Last week, they banned Bakari Sellers' book, My Vanishing Country. I have it on my website on sale for $12, the same as Amazon. You want to ban it, I'm going to sell it just like Amazon is selling. You're not going to buy it from Amazon, you're going to buy it from me. Because I have had Mr. Bakari Sellers at my bookstore, and he's coming back at the end of this year. They banned his book, but they didn't ban Hillbilly Effigy. And that's J.D. Vance's book. They didn't ban his book, but they're going to ban all these other books. So please encourage your kids, your friends, to donate $5 to the libraries, donate $5 to the bookstores, donate $5 to the food bank. Our food banks are just been disseminated, just crushed because of what's going on in 2025. So I'm one of the fighters, as you said. I'm fighting because you're not going to erase my history. You're not going to erase my history. And we have a young man in South Carolina that has this book out. This is one of the best. I'll pass it around. You can go to our website. I try to bring some here, but my manager is in Charlotte selling books for us at another function. So she took all the black books. Now, my bookstore don't just sell books by black authors. They sell them by Asian, African Americans, Latinos, because I don't believe, as Malcolm X said, everybody should be inclusive. Nobody should be excused. That's why my bookstore and my website sells everything. I just want to encourage everybody. Do not let them take away our libraries. Do not let them take away our bookstores. Do you know what the libraries are doing now for the summer? They're providing free lunches because the schools are not providing free lunches to the kids. Do you know the libraries are providing fruits and vegetables free based on donations? That's why I said please donate them. And there's all the libraries in Charleston County. We're still having a battle with Berkeley County. But we know how. I'm not from here. I wasn't born and raised here. But I've been here long enough to see what they're doing, only because I was raised under the people who were raised with Malcolm X. Washington, D.C., in the hood, in the street. So I'm not going to be long, but please remember to support your libraries, support your bookstores, donate to your food bank, and if you see somebody in need, get on your knees and help them, because God says, I'm going to blame you if you don't help your fellow man, because your job is to help your fellow man. Thank you very much. I'm not going to take much time.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, most merciful. My name is Carlos Bilal. I'm a local visual artist here. I'm also an interpreter. I see some of my interpreters in here that's connected with the Black and Brown Interpreters Network and the College of Charleston. I see my Muslim brother, Abdul Salam. He's my OG. He's my big homie. He's my mentor. I'm surprised he didn't tell me about this event. Thank you, Brother Marcus. But a lot of my art dealing with preserving culture in Charleston, Geechee Gullah culture, black culture of South Carolina. If you know me, you know me. If you don't, you don't. Marcus contacted me and said, yo, I would love for you to speak at this event. How did Malcolm X impact my artwork and me as a black man? Tell the truth, he did not impact me as an artist, but he did impact me as a man. And in Islam, we had a saying, Inna ilahi wa inna ila raji'un, which meaning from Allah we come from and from Allah we return. And within those 39 years that Malcolm lived, his last 5 years was so impactful that all of our years collectively in here could not even touch his at all. And within those 39 years, it seemed like he went through these different phases, in which each phase had their own name. One phase had Malcolm Little as a young black boy, raised in a two-parent household by a strong black woman and a strong black man who stood on values, stood on religion. His dad was part of the Marcus Garvey movement. Mother, a supporter, a nurturer, a caretaker. These are the foundations of society. Man and woman, husband and wife. They don't have, your college degrees, your protesting has nothing to do with this right here. Keep it 100 with you. And within that frame of Malcolm's childhood, that built his foundation. Seeing a strong black woman, a strong black man, strong father, strong mother, point blank. To the point where his dad walked around Nebraska with his chest out. And they hate when you walk with your chest out as a black man. In the last 2 months, we've seen that with Deion Sanders' son, Deion Sanders. We've seen that with the guy who ran over the police in Cincinnati. When he looked at the police in his eyes, head up, chest out, chin up. To the point where they know if you take out the father out the household crumbles. So when the KKK took Malcolm out of the house, tied him to the railroad track, and let the train split him in half. When the mother had to see her king get separated like that, it drove his mother into a mental institute and forced the kids to go into foster care, divided up the kids. That's the end of a black family, point blank. And even Malcolm still strived from that. And as a young boy, he was always making good grades, top of his class. The only black kid in his class still scored the best grades in his class. Until his teacher shot him down like a duck from Duck Hunt on Nintendo, saying, you can't become a doctor, you can only become a janitor. And that's equivalent to our young black boys today. They say for black boys, it's about time they get in third grade. If they're on the third grade reading level, 10 years later, we got a prison waiting for them. Now just think about that. If your child's not on the third grade reading level as an 8-year-old, they have a prison waiting for them when they turn 18 years old. And after this, I think Malcolm Little lost hope because he started transforming into Detroit Red. And most of our young brothers from 8 years old, when they lose that hope, they started transforming to a Detroit Red. Like we all know YNs. And to a default, most of our black men in here is a Detroit Red. Because that's by default, the country, the nation, the world look at us as young niggas. So yes, we are YNs by default, but we are men by birth.
That's right.
And as Malcolm Little was transforming into Detroit Red, you know, as most black adolescents, like we like listening to the music, we like smoking weed, we like, you know, women, chasing women, you know, the things that don't build. And also with this YN mentality, even our regular 9-to-5 black men, we tend to have a default towards this mentality. Whether we like the music or not, whether we like the mentality or not, even if we got a regular 9-to-5 or a college degree, we still gravitate towards a YN mentality. With that being said, this YN mentality, this Detroit Red mind state would end you in two places. It's in the grave or the jail. And it ended up, Detroit Red ended up in prison. You know, probably the best place for him to be at that time because he had the time to pump his brakes and really focus. Like most of my brothers I know that come from prison, they're Muslims now. A lot of them lived that life. And they, you know, alhamdulillah, they was able to talk about it, live about it. And once you're in prison, you got time to pick up a book. You got time to read. You got time to think logically about life, the wrongs and the rights. And with Detroit Red was coming into a transformation of Malcolm X, which we all know of him of, and that's why we're here today. But in that process of transforming from Detroit red,
Like Benya. Anybody from here from Charleston? Y'all know what that means? Bam, okay, I see my people, what's going on? So I am Benya. I see a couple come, yes, that's okay. You know, we rock with y'all too. So I've been born and raised in Charleston, and I've been seeing a whole lot of what Charleston has to offer and what Charleston has not been doing. And so what I'm hoping that y'all leave here today is just action, you know? Because we can talk all day, but if we don't do nothing, then the issues are going to stay the same. So with that being said, so I'm gonna start with a quote by Malcolm X. He said, "Revolution is based on land. Land is the basis of independence. Land is the basis of freedom, justice, and equality." So let's talk about land. As I said, Charleston is the capital of the slave trade. The slave port wasn't just in Charleston. It was the slave port. Majority of enslaved Africans came through the ports of Charleston. At least that's what they say. But as I tell people, I like to read more than I run my mouth. And what I discovered is they didn't even consider us proper, they didn't consider us human. So some slave narratives that I was able to uncover, they actually just listed us as movable property, which means it's probably way more than 40%. It's probably close to 60%. And so with that being said, we were documented as cargo, as property, and as Gullah Geechee people. Charleston wouldn't be nothing if it wasn't for us. People come down here, they're like, ooh, where the Gullah Geechee people at? They come down, listen, they come down here, they want to get a taste of our food, our cuisine, even though they repackage it and call it what, Southern cuisine, but that ain't nothing but Gullah Geechee food. Like, who was over here cultivating the rice? Right. That was African people, the African woman that had the knowledge and skill to braid rice into the air and to bring it here. But when you look it up, who owns the rice? Carolina Gold Rice, who owns it? We don't own it. We don't even have access to it. If y'all go downtown, we downtown right now, try to buy that rice, how much does it cost? Too much. Right. So we don't even have access to the crops that our ancestors brought over here. And then if we look at the bricks, we're downtown Charleston. I encourage y'all, if y'all have not explored downtown, you will see fingerprints all over the bricks of Charleston. So literally, black people, blood, sweat, and tears is in Charleston, especially downtown Charleston. Anytime they're digging up the dirt, disturbing the soil, they're finding bones that belong to men, women, and children who were once enslaved in Charleston. Yet when we talk about reparations, radio silence. Radio silence. But you got Asheville, North Carolina, San Francisco, Boston, Evanston, who are exploring reparation programs right now as we speak. Still, Charleston, which y'all can feel free to let me know if I'm wrong, but I haven't heard anything. I haven't seen anything being done towards reparations. But I do see we got a museum. And don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Ain't nothing wrong with a museum. Ain't nothing wrong with a statue. But it's like we can't eat that. You know, like you got people out here who homeless. People out here that need food. As they said, a food bank ain't finna be providing no more food. All that can be solved with something as simple as reparations. And this isn't something that we are, I would say, like asking for. Because at one point in time, we already had our reparations. I don't know if y'all heard of 40 acres and a mule that went on. So that was actually Special Field Order number 15. They actually allocated over 400,000 acres of land stretching from Charleston all the way to Florida to newly freed African Americans. That was for us to rebuild our own independent nation, but they, as you say, reneged on it. And that just left us in the state that we're in now. If you look at the homeless rate in Charleston, we at the top. If you look at the people who are incarcerated, we're at the top. Like, we're at the top, and I'm not the one who say, like, we should just wait on the government. My thing is, give us the resources that we are owed. We are owed land. We are owed free education. But Charleston was the main one, after the Storm of Rebellion, where they made it illegal for us to learn how to read or write, which is why somebody mentioned about the school system. As somebody, I'm a teacher in Charleston, so I've seen it from both sides of the desk. Like, their goal isn't to educate our kids. Their goal is to put them in prison. Their goal is to keep us as a labor force. And that will only change if we take charge. Like, I don't care if they ban books. My whole thing is we should build our own schools. Because, like, that's the only way it's going to change. And that's coming from a teacher standpoint. So, with that being said, I won't be out here too long. You know, I know you said something about food, and I don't know about y'all, but, you know, my stomach and my back, so you might ready for that one. And so, I started doing something with my homegirl. Shout out to Natalie. Last month, we actually started planting sunflowers over at Jenkins Orphanage. I don't know if y'all ever heard of Jenkins Institute for Children. A few of y'all. But we started planting sunflowers there because sunflowers, they are called phytoremediators. So basically mean they can pull toxins out of the soil. And we're planting there because we just want to make sure the soil is clear of any lead, any poison, because y'all know how they do in predominantly black communities. I'll go down the list. Y'all know how they do us with environmental racism and all the things we can think of. And so we're starting there so we can grow our own food. Because as we see with this I can't even say just with Trump because the food system has always been kind of rocky. But I don't know about y'all, but I don't want the government in control of my food. And then so, and the sunflowers have already started producing. They already started growing. We got grapes, we got peaches. And so the goal is for us to focus on land, since that was the first form of reparation that we actually ever received. And so just to go back to that, to what was already given to our ancestors. So I'm hoping if any of y'all are moved here today, is that instead of just taking it away like, oh yeah, we went to that Malcolm X event, I hope y'all are ready to actually put forth some action before something else happens, before another police involved shooting, before they shut down the grocery stores, or they poison it again with God knows what. And so I'm gonna leave right here with this one. If y'all ready to actually literally get in the field, because that's what I'm focusing on, you know, so get your hands dirty, put your hand, a seed in the soil. Y'all can connect with me. It is called Geechee Sunflower, because we got folks, yeah, we got the sunflowers.
Girl, sunflowers are my life.
So y'all can connect with me. I'm on social media, but I'd rather, you know, just hit me up, because, you know, I have to, you know, fuss at some folks who be on my page trolling. But just hit me up on all social media platforms. Geechee got a Sakua, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Just hit me up if you are ready to actually put in the work and put forth action. But that's it. That's all.
All right, so I guess we're gonna kind of do like a 3-parter. I'm gonna be brief. I'm gonna be short. You know, if you know me, you know people have to put a time limit on me because they say I'm kind of long-winded, but I'm not gonna do that today. So I already mentioned food, so hey, we're gonna kind of keep it right there. So I'm Alefia Scary. I'm with Ubuntu Institute in Spartanburg, South Carolina. I'm also with the South Carolina Reparations Alliance, and this is Ubuntu, Eva Keith, Jonica Dunlap. We're the founders of the institution up there, and also we started the South Carolina Reparations Alliance. So I want to talk about human rights. So Ubuntu is a reparations organization and a human rights organization. So I'm going to talk about human rights right quick, and they'll talk about the reparations piece. But I want to tie this into Malcolm because, right, you know, we focus a lot on, we know Malcolm X, right? But we don't really focus so much on El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz, right? And that is, what was Malcolm's philosophy before he got killed? What made Malcolm this international threat? So one of the things, right, that Malcolm talked about before he was killed, right? Malcolm talked about, you know, we was dealing with this civil and political piece, and that would not solve our problem, right? And so Malcolm talked about, you know, moving toward the human rights arena, right? You know, we have to engage in the human rights fight and move it to the international level. And so that's one of the things that we talk about, right? One of the things I think that, you know, some of the things we deal with, we make things hard because we don't use all the tools that's available to us. As long as we operate just in that civil political framework where people make up the laws and they tell you that you got to operate with this square space right here and this is all you can use, just like the piece around immigration, just like the piece around birthright citizenship, they can change that law anytime, right? That's right. Even going back to slavery, right? You know, hey, slavery is a law, the abolition of it is a law, they can change that law. I mean, you know, and that's the way when you're dealing with, if you don't understand racism, you don't understand, you don't know what can happen tomorrow. So anyway, one of the things I want to talk about right quick, within the human rights framework, there are things that we can use. We talk about education. Within the UN, the human rights framework, you have economic, social, and cultural rights, right? Within that takes care of, you know, that as a human being on this planet, you have the right to culture, you have the right to education, you have the right to economic freedom, which includes housing, food, all of these things, right? These are, and what they've done, right, even healthcare, and what they've done, right, is tied these things into political piece, right? You know, tied it into jobs. But these are basic human rights. The United States voted. If you look through Europe, a lot of things exist in Europe, right? And we can talk about why it may not exist in this country, right? But also, right, you know, you have CERD, right? CERD is Convention for the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination. United States is a signature on this treaty, meaning that CERD is a legally binding document at the local, state, and federal level. United States have an obligation to do everything it can to eliminate racism. You look it up. So the thing about it is this right here. That is, and that means get rid of hate speech, hate groups, all of that, right? You see hate groups listed out here on the internet. right? Hate speech is out here all the time. Now, I don't know why, when it comes to that, we've been dealing with this for a long time in terms of hate speech toward black folk, and even black folks being killed, but you make up a special law in terms of dealing with other people in terms of anti-Semitism, right? So, under this, what they want to say is that the hate speech piece, the right for these groups to exist, is protected under the First Amendment, the right of freedom of speech or whatever. So, black folks don't have this protection here, right? So you have that. You have the UDHR, which is Universal Declaration of Human Rights. You look at that. United States have developed this tool. The thing about it is this right here. These things are designed more or less to protect white people more than were other people. So when you start to look at what's happening globally, and someone mentioned it earlier, you know, you have the world kind of divided into the West and somewhat of the global South. Anybody heard the term global South?
Yeah.
Right, so yeah, so this is all the non-white people, and basically those people have the things that white people want, and it's about how do you control them and take their resources by any means necessary, including war. Creating, label them as terrorists. So the thing about it is this right here, I put a sheet out, and, right quick. So you have the second international decade for people of African descent. So the first international decade went from 2015 to 2024, right? Probably nobody heard of it. Anybody heard of it? Okay, right? So now we enter into the second decade, right? The United States didn't say anything about it, right? We just came back from New York at from the Permanent Forum for People of African Descent at the United Nations. There, the whole issue of racism is a global issue, right? It is something that we're dealing with, right? And right now, the problem of it is, just like you mentioned about, Burkina Faso, Mali, these countries saying, hey, you know what? We're not going for it anymore. And they're starting to see this resistance, right? Oh, also, right, CRT, critical race theory, erasing black folks' history, economic and social and cultural rights, right? All this is there if we utilize it. And the thing about it is that they don't share this with us, or we're not interested in it, but this is tools, right, that we can use. We have to use every tool that's available to us and then not ignore these things. So I'm going to turn it over to them on reparations.
Okay, thank you, Malekni. And again, thanks to all of you for being here. Special thank you to Marcus for inviting us and allowing us to speak here. As Malefi said, we're part of the Ubuntu Institute for Community Development, which is located in Spartanburg, South Carolina. Last year, January 2024, we launched the South Carolina Reparations Alliance down here, excuse me, in Columbia, and we have folks from various areas here in the state. The general purpose for SCRA is to work locally, at the local level, the state level, and provide support on the national level. So briefly, I'll say, has anyone here heard of reparations being paid anywhere in the U.S.? Yes. Yes. Okay. All right. For sure. A little background is we know the Japanese were paid in 1988 $1 billion because they were corralled and put away. We know that families, victims of the Tuskegee experiment, some of them were paid reparations. I have not been able to find out how much, but that's part of the record. Rosewood, Florida, 1923, they were paid $2.1 billion because of the attack on that community. The Native Americans, the indigenous, were paid reparations because their land was stolen from them. And more recently in Evanston, Illinois, they have a reparations project going there in the community, as well as in Asheville and some other places, I think California, and in some other places, they have commissions to study reparations. And then in Virginia, victims of forced sterilization were paid reparations. So we launched the South Carolina Reparations Alliance because as far as we could understand, nothing was being done here about reparations for us. And we did that because we feel we're entitled to it. And how many of you here feel that you're entitled to reparations because of what your ancestors endured? Raise your hand. Yes, all right? And we're not going to ask for it. We're going to make a demand for it. We can't ask. Yesterday, we were talking about this at Marcus, and the young lady were kind enough to come up. But Frederick Douglass says, help me with the quote.
Marcus sees nothing without a demand.
Thank you. I'm not so good at that. But thank you, Marcus, for helping me out. So that's where we are with the Reparations Alliance, all right? Other organizations that are working on reparations are called the Institute of the Black World, 21st Century. And I'm going to name a couple more because while reparations is a hot topic now, it did not just start this year, last year, or the year before. It's been going on for years. And finally, some of us are really catching the conversation and listening and believing and supporting. All right, we have the National African American Reparations Commission, and they have a 10-point plan. And for me, that's one of the oldest organizations that I'm aware of that's been working on reparations for years and years and years. We have people who say, well, they ain't gonna give us no money. No, they're not. But if we demand, we can get something. It's not just about the check. Some people say, cut the check. Okay, we all know we need a check. But in our communities, we need more than a check. We need our schools, we need health care, and in DC, they're talking about cutting Medicaid. A lot of people use Medicaid. I worked with a summer program in New York, and the majority of the parents whose children enrolled in that summer program, working parents, mind you, working 1, 2, maybe 3 jobs, were getting Medicaid because of the low salaries that they were being paid. And you have the same thing throughout the U.S. The low salaries, the families are not able to get from one check to the next without Medicaid to help them get through that period, all right? So reparations involve 5 areas. Restitution, to restore us to our original selves, okay? And impossibility? No, not really. Give it some thought. Compensation. Finance, as I said, some people say cut the check. We can take a check, but we need more than a check. And the check has to be big enough to do what we think needs to be done in our communities so that we will feel that we're getting the reparations that our community deserves. Rehabilitation. We know that mental health, our general health is really serious. There's a lack of opportunities. There's a lack of medical facilities. There's a need to be able to afford the meds that we have to take. So that's part of the rehabilitation. Satisfaction. We need an apology. Wherever we are, that's what we need. Accountability, admitting it, and being able to go forth. And the last one is no repetition, right? We need a guarantee that we're not going to have to worry about this going forward, all right? We can get reparations, but then the small print might have something there that will not be good for us going forward. So we need that guarantee. And I'll end with these things that I listed here are listed on the United Nations site. And as the gentleman said there, you can look this up. We have smartphones, not so smartphones, but we are smart people. So all we have to do is look this up. And personally, I will ask that when it comes to the books and reading, yesterday at the event we had, the question was, what was one word you would say to help the black community or something like that, right, Marcus?
Mhm.
My one word was read. Read. You can read your phone, read a book. I like reading books better, but read. We have to read, and we have to do our own research and not believe what we see on the internet, on our phone. Read it, but research it, all right? So thank you. And we have these cards. We'd like for each of you to take a card and check out our site and provide a little donation too. Thank you.
I just want to end with this as well, as a reparations, a demand for justice. In a 1960 speech in Boston, and this is to remember that this is not new. People have been doing the work for a long time. And Brother Malcolm has done the work, he did the research, and one of the things we know about Malcolm is he under and overstood white supremacy in the empire that we live in. So he made a speech in Boston which he inserted that the United States must compensate us for labor stolen from us, advocating for land as a form of reparations. He viewed reparations not as a charity, but as a rightful claim for the centuries of unpaid labor and suffering endured by African Americans. Further emphasizing this point, in 1963, Malcolm X addressed Michigan State University, titled "The Race Problem." Malcolm presented the Nation of Islam call for reparations, highlighting the economic injustices faced by Black Americans. As we honor Brother Malcolm, as we honor his presence, his understanding of this world we live in, this white supremacy world we live in, this empire, imperialism, colonialist world that we live in, he understood about reparations. There needs to be a continuous fight for it. If you need better understanding, need a focal point, a group who's doing some work about it, please check us out. We appreciate your time for listening. Thank you.
I'm almost finished with this one. I'm a maximalist, a maximum minimalist. So I like to do things very stark and plain, but still make them heavy. So I did a hybrid of, so shout out to Detroit Red, and then I mixed it in with old school Malcolm. So there's a lot of little hidden subliminals on the World Trade Center. Zuzu turns into a turntable. The book is a gun. And then, you know, as a wordplay person, I always think of how words can mesh. So gangster and minister. And then Mosque, Temple 7, other little subliminals in there. So I'll leave it on the table if y'all want to check it out.
That's Rosa
And then,
Parks. Rosa Parks?
Yeah. So the hip hop version of Rosa Parks. So there's some more subliminals in there. I ain't quite all the way finished. But we'll get there. All right, so I wanna shout out my alma mater, A1. I went to South Carolina State University. And I wanna shout out Marcus for keeping BLM going. I started out with BLM Charleston in 2014, right after Ferguson. We were on the ground when Walter Scott got killed. And then, and then it's the 10th year anniversary of Emmanuel 9. And then once Muhyiddin got killed in 18, that was just, it was kind of like when, like Dr. King almost, like it just kind of traumatized, that first iteration of the chapter. So when Marcus was carrying the torch, and I want to lift up the work that he's continuing to do. And one thing I think is important, I call this the master work. Like when we as organizers get together, iron sharpens iron. But what I've been doing is taking the conversation like to community. Not everybody just got the luxury to show up. So my store from the oak tree and the porch sit, and I think Hampton has an emancipation oak. So we just call them emancipation, oak tree circles. So we just tell organizers to bring chairs, canvass the community, be like, yo, we'll be right here in your neighborhood, at set time, get the water, the lemon water, the iced tea, and then just break bread with community and honor like what's happening, in that immediate neighborhood. So anybody wants to partner, I'll organize all around Georgia and South Carolina, and I'll break bread with anybody that's about that life. So, what's your name again, bro?
Bilal.
Mm-hmm. So I was going to do something different, but something Eva said, and then a lot of what you said kind of inspired me to go with this one. So it's called Poems, Power, and Respect, kind of homage to the Locks and, Malcolm at the same time. Poems, Power, Respect, what you need in life. Poems, Power, Respect, babies read and write. Poems, Power, Respect, if we keep the fight. We could see the heights, we could be the lights. Suffering succotash, chapbooks and chapstick for lips that rip raps till wick-wack words, R.I.P. in verses and lanes of the chaplain's book. Blessed in peace. Amen, cousin. The judges are judging, the hippies are hugging, and I'm in corporate contemplating cutting. My judge dreads will get stereotyped by the judge for dreadlocks and getting locked up in stereo. DEI is dying in 57 years after they took the crown off Dr. King. The fact that we still gotta say Black Lives Matter is a con, it's a game. To get locked up for being blacker than Akon, yeah, man. Throw away the key tucked in my ninja sash, let's get this cash and dash. We went from black spades to playing against a stacked deck to B-boys and B-girls breakdancing to avoid jail to the prison systems breaking us. So we make a break for it, seeking Shawshank Redemption. Took that 5,000 from Elon and the felon, paid by the citizens who actually paid taxes to fools who steal pensions. They overthrow the government, they lead again, convicted but don't go to the penitentiary. Poems, Power, Respect, what you need in life. Poems, Power, Respect, babies read and write. But 85% of black kids can't read, so read the room. Somewhere over the reading rainbow, a teacher's being forced to Toby, a Kunta, and a future Mansa Musa. Mayday, Mayday, can I kick it, Pele? At some point, we gotta point to ourselves to be on point and make Fruitopia where life gives us lemons. Can I kick it? At some point, we gotta kick up dust and put up master's ass and not half step when field and house workers roundhouse kick it and throw the first stone on rebellion. Now, I don't know karate or crazy, I just know karma. So we swing for the fence. Take the naughty bat off my chest, off the chain like Tretch. Now feel me flow freedom as a ghetto bastard makes everything aight. So while the world focuses on Kendrick's two-step, we gonna be aight cause Chubb Rock won't let us forget about Yusef. Hawkins, Nino Brown told Ms. Hawkins that none of us own boats or poppy fields. Air Jordans don't yield value to compare to air property of grandpa's house or crops of nature and mommy's fields. Hurry up, yo. Won't be no hip-hop parade hole when our people's potential land ownership becomes OPP, other people's property, not even a sharecrop. Ayo, what these systems want from a nigga. A1, they want us to give white people their N-word back, put our skin in the game and get our kind of credit in the blackberry molasses. We just came to borrow some brown sugar, most deaf, but watch the blood sugar and diabetes, most deaf. The new danger is a cabbie, real ninja in tabbies. During the roll, bounce back from setbacks. I skate now. The sweetness is skating our souls on ice. They deport brown people and it ain't nothing nice, but we the revolutionaries believe in get back. With Poems, Power, and Respect, what you need in life. Poems, Power, and Respect, babies read and write. But 85% of black kids can't read, so read the room. Somewhere over the reading rainbow, a kid with no bed to sleep in has a bed with his name on it in prison.
Harm not just to Palestinians, but also to Africans and newly independent African countries who are being taken advantage of by Zionism. So he was, he's been well respected by Palestinian prominent leaders, including the poet and professor Rafat al-Harir, who was recently martyred in the past 2 years, as well as intellectuals like Edward Said. And because they saw the parallels of Malcolm's struggle with their own struggles in Palestine. I want to read a quote from Malcolm, where he says that power in defense of freedom is greater than power in behalf of tyranny and oppression, because power, real power, comes from our conviction, which produces action, uncompromising action. So I want everyone here to leave today, to make a commitment to take some kind of action from any one of the organizers that spoke before. All the great work that's being done to make a commitment to take some kind of action. I do want to share briefly about what we are working with as a local Palestine solidarity movement here. So our biggest campaign right now is to get Elbit out of South Carolina. For those of you who don't know, Elbit is an American subsidy of an Israeli weapons manufacturer that opened a factory right here in Ladson in 2022, building howitzer cannons to be shipped to Israel. How many of you knew about Elbit already? So for most of it, this is new information, which is not surprising. Even the county council, when they voted to provide tax breaks, did not know what company they were voting on to give our tax money to until after they made the vote. So we have a campaign that we're using multiple approaches to try to shut Elbit down. We have inspiration from places like Boston that have kicked Elbit out of their towns, and we want to do that here in Charleston. Charleston's going to be next. So we have a petition. We have a petition outside on the table there if you want to sign it. You can also visit elbitoutofsc.com. You can sign it online. We can pass around some more information about it. We also picket every Thursday at 2:30. You can meet us in the Ladson Walmart, and we ride over together and picket in front of the factory for a couple of hours. We know that our pressure is working. We know that Elbit is feeling our pressure, because on May Day we had dozens of people show out, 70 plus people show out, and the Elbit workers all left early. So we know we can shut them down because we're seeing results already, even just picketing every week. If you have any more questions, you can come talk to me. You can talk to Kirby or Jess over here, and we'd love to see you all out there. Thank you.
I'm a Benya who does a come ya and then a Benya again. I was born at Benners Point, South Carolina, Gully and Geechee. Those who know the difference is the Geechees are from Georgia and the Gullys from here, but they're all the same. They just changed the name to protect the innocent. So the first house I lived in at the age of 4 years old was 101 Hanover Street. I'm 74. That was 70 years ago. We moved from 101 Hanover Street, which is no longer there. It is an open lot. They're selling for $700,000. Up the street at 111 Drake Street, next to Hannibal's, was the second house I lived in. At 111 Drake Street, from 7 until 8 years old. And then we moved to 561 Rutledge Avenue. 111 Drake Street, if they sell it, it's gonna sell for close to $1 million. The house I grew up in on Rutledge Avenue, went to Burke High School, 561 Rutledge, that is now rated at 1.2, and the house next to it sold for 1.3 last year. The history of how all this happened is what confuses folk. But I came because Marcus told me y'all gonna be talking about my hero, Malcolm X. So I came to offer 5 books. Sister Miller, I'm so glad that you made this point. I am boycotting Amazon because they boycotted us. I think one good boycott deserves another. You boycott me, I boycott you, that's how it plays. And so I wanted to be able to have folk get the books they need. In the first book, this book I bought, ironically, Wilberforce University is the first private HBCU. It's the first private HBCU, founded by a man from Charleston, who was born on what is now known as Princess Street, Daniel Alexander Payne. Daniel Alexander Payne had 2 schools in Charleston, one on Trash Street, and he named it after the work he was doing. They found out that he was teaching black boys to read. So a member of the City Council of Charleston, who was also a member of the General Assembly, in 1834, passed a law that made it illegal to teach black folk to read in South Carolina. because of Daniel Alexander Payne. The law became effective April 1, 1835. He left here, went to New York, then Pennsylvania, and finally in Ohio, where he founded Wilberforce University, named after William Wilberforce. Why is that significant? Because reading black folk are so dangerous, they made it illegal. That's why what your work is so important. So the book, I'm a voracious reader. I heard you say that I'm a voracious reader. I went to the colored libraries on Dart Hall. That's a colored library on Cracky Street. I didn't go to a library with white people in it that wasn't working until I came back from college. All the libraries I went to in Charleston were colored libraries, mostly Cracky Street. This book, a white English professor at Wilberforce University assigned me this book, and it's called Autobiography of Malcolm X by, as told to Alex Haley. Literally changed my life. I had it for so long that the cover's gone. I have notes in this book from 1968. When I got to college, I was 17 years old. Dr. King was killed in my senior year at Burke High School, and the superintendent came to my high school to make sure we didn't honor him by having a separate program. His name was Correa, and he came to Burke to make sure we didn't act a fool. And I never forgot it and never forgave him. He did, but I still haven't forgiven him. But when I went to Wilberforce, she got me to read this book, and the book literally changed my life. I don't know if you ever read a book that you could not put down. This is not hyperbole, this is the truth. I read the book 3 times in 1 week. In fact, I got so bad, my roommate was from Philly. He thought he was going to press me because he was from North Philly or South Philly. That's a boy from Charleston. I don't care where you're from. But it took a lot more than name to make me impressed. So I told him, I read the book in 3 days, and it literally changed my life. Because I found out in the book, he named my pain. I didn't understand. I did not know white people were supposed to be superior. I grew up under an illusion. I was born at Bennett's Point. I'm named after my granddaddy who knocked the white mayor of Walterboro on his butt in 1929. Do you think I care what white folk think when I know I got a grandfather who knocked the mayor down and walked around and lived to tell about it? So when I found out white folk thought they were superior, I was shocked. Who told you that? But Malcolm X's book changed my life. I came home all full of him and went to my mama's house where I was still living when I came home from college, and walked to every bedroom and took down the white Jesus. I almost got kicked out of my mama's house for taking down the white Jesus. So I commend the book to your attention, whatever else you may think. In 1968, at the age of 17, I had never heard what Malcolm X wrote, what Malcolm X said to Alex Haley. It literally changed the trajectory of my life. It made me, at that time they called me a black militant. I joined the Black Panther Party. Was going to be a Muslim on the corner because Malcolm was a Muslim, and the brother selling the paper told me I couldn't eat pork. I said, give me a little longer, brother. Give me a little more time, right? I'm going to give up a lot. It took me a while to give up that pork, bro. I said, I'm just being transparent, keep it 100, so. I came home for the hospital strike in 1969 when I was on my first summer at Wilberforce, what we call co-op. I got to meet the leaders who were making that hospital strike work, mostly women. And I was empowered by getting to meet them. So I went back to college. The same year, the second book I called to your attention, make sure you got them all.
Oh, honey, I got it.
I knew you did.
Oh, I got it.
I am boycotting Amazon. So I'm glad to know Tony Pointer's online too. So we'll be getting your books. One is called To Kill a Black Man
There you go.
by Louis E. Lomax.
There you go.
Don't believe the hype and don't believe the tales. He does a powerful job of comparing the lives of Dr. King and Malcolm X. That's several things in common. They were both 39 when they were killed. They were both assassinated. Both assassinated by what we believe was the American government.
That's right. That's right.
But they also took a journey to get to where they were. And they did only cross paths one time. Louis Lomax has a powerful book. One of the challenges of the movement of today is not letting black folk choose teams in liberation.
That's right.
If you're working for liberation, doesn't matter what your colors are. What matters is, are you down with it? And Louis Lomax helped me, because I grew up, at that time I was an anti-King person. So this book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community. Why is South Carolina important? Dr. King held his staff meetings at St. Helena Island, back then called Frogmore, 3 consecutive years. And in 1967, he opened his staff meeting with this quote. He said, what we're going to do these 3 days is answer 3 questions. From whence we've come, where are we now, and where do we go from here? Chaos or community? He took a vacation in 1967 in Jamaica to write a book. This is the book he wrote. Where do we go from here? Chaos or community? One of the best organizing books I've ever read. I've read a lot of organizing books. Let me help you and help me. The other book that's essential, the two are Medgar Evers' biography is too big to bring, but he's my hero, and also Simple Justice. This is the book of what happened in Clarendon County, South Carolina that changed America. Yesterday, May 17th, was the 71st anniversary of the Brown decision. The Brown decision came down because of Summerton, South Carolina, where a handful of black folk rallied to make sure their children got an equal education, and they produced the greatest the greatest judicial decision in the history of the United States in 1954, primarily because of what black folk in South Carolina did in Clarendon County, the little place called Summerton, Mr. and Mrs. Briggs, who became heroes of mine. Sidney Poitier came to Charleston to do a movie in 1991 called Separate But Equal, from this book called Simple Justice. And I had the pleasure of being in the movie, sitting with Sidney Poitier, telling me to read my line better, because I had a speaking role in the movie. Somebody said, hallelujah, Lord can do anything. And so, in that, I had a chance to understand the mythology versus the truth. A lot of what we believe is mythology. Some of it is based on ignorance, and some of it is based on just hating. It's very important to know the truth, and the truth will set you free. So what happened in this? Ben Chavis, who hired me as the regional director of the NAACP, held the first African American Leadership Summit in history at the NAACP headquarters in Baltimore, Maryland. Eventually got him fired. In that summit was Louis Farrakhan, Hakeem Matabuti, Sister Sonia Sanchez, John Thompson, Dolores, who wrote for the Washington Post. And the Minister Louis Farrakhan and I arrived at the same time. We had never met before that day. He came to the back with security. I came to the front because I ain't got nothing to secure. And so I walked in, and there, at the desk in front of me, was a placard. It said, Betty Shabazz. I asked the folk, is Betty Shabazz coming? They said, I don't think so, because the minister's going to be here. I said, so she won't miss this then. I reached over and took that doggone play card with her name on and stuck it in my pocket, because I wanted to be able to say yes or not, I got the Betty Shabazz hookup. The next day she came, because she had heard that Malcolm's relationship and going to Cairo and going to Egypt and going to the Hajj was misrepresented in the meeting. She showed up herself. It was worth the price of being there, and it cost me nothing. After that, the Lord blessed me. Do you know my hero is Medgar Evers? Medgar Evers, I never met. I know his wife well and his children. Medgar Evers was killed when I was 12 years old. My mama had the Life magazine at the house. The first time I ever saw a black person on the cover of Life was Merle Evers at the funeral of Medgar. And I asked my mother, why did they kill him? And mama said he was trying to help colored people. And I said, I want to help colored people. And my mama said in her precise wisdom, boy, they kill people for that. 12 years later, I had the same job in South Carolina. No, 22 years ago. Had the same job in South Carolina Medgar Evers had in Mississippi. I was the field director for the NAACP. What happened from that? Betty Shabazz taught at Medgar Evers College. I had a chance to go to New York and sat in the restaurant, the faculty restaurant, talking to Betty Shabazz about my hero. And I asked her every question I could think of. And she gave me this profoundly wise advice. Asked her, was he scared? What happened? She told me the last night he spent was not with her. It was at the Hilton Hotel, because he couldn't stay home because they were bombing the house. He went to the Hilton and left the Hilton and went to the Audubon Ballroom where they killed him. She said, son, whatever you do, get organized. The reason Malcolm formed the OAU and then OAAU was because he recognized unless you're organized, you're just talking. That's right. Unless you're organized, you just spreading yourself and being proud of who you are. Right. If it's about you, it ain't the movement. It cannot be about you. She made me understand. So at that time, I was a radical. I went to Arizona on Co-op in Phoenix, walking around with the paper, the Black Panther Party paper, getting white folk to sign the petition, get Angela Davis out of jail. And then white folk got so scared of me, they thought I was a militant. They were right, but I was a militant in Phoenix, Arizona. So when I got to sign the petition, a Jewish sister said to me in all her angst, and we were friends, her name was Julie Zest. Clearly, I have not forgotten her. She said, you're always talking about black people and black what folk are going through and black this. I'm sick of that. Y'all not the first people who were persecuted. I said, baby, be careful. You're about to go down a place you don't want to go. Don't ever compare pain with a black person. You're going to lose every time. And I said to her, if you change your name, put it on your checkbook, and you change your name to Thompson, you can go down to the IGA and they'll take your check. I can change my name to Epstein. And if they're walking to see my face, they don't care what my name is. My face will make them check my check and do a check on it. I said, so don't compare yourself to Bush. She made me understand, though, talking is cheap. Organization is key. So I came home. And Roy Wilkins had an article in Jet magazine, NAACP had boycotted in Port Gibson, Mississippi. They filed a lawsuit, the state of Mississippi did, and the fine was $2 million. NAACP didn't have anything close to $2 million. They were about to go out of business. And I found myself walking around my apartment on Dorchester Road saying this. If they so black, how come they just don't write a check for $2 million? And the Spirit of the living God said in my ears, well, how much money you give, Negro? And the answer was I was talking loud, but I was saying nothing. So I say to you and say this to Marcus all the time. I don't care what you do, but you can't keep doing what you've been doing without being organized. Whatever you do, you need organization. Doesn't have to be mine. I happen to work with Reverend Al Sharpton at the National Action Network. I've known Reverend Al Sharpton since 1991. We had no idea we'd be working together. My life was changed by a conversation, one conversation with Jesse Jackson running for president. The whole interstate in Charleston was closed down for Jesse. And we ended up riding from downtown to the airport. When we got to the airport, I was in the car trying to mess with him, trying to find what did he say about all these people hate on him. You know, Jesse got a lot of haters. And some of them are very prominent. I said, why folk talk about you like this, man? He turned around, looked me in the face, and he said, you need to keep your eyes on the prize. What they say about me doesn't mean a thing. It's what I do that means everything. And he taught me, spend less time on your haters and more time on your agenda. Because the haters have a role to play. And their role is to distract you from what you're doing. And he said this about my life. He said, Rivers, people don't have to be nice to you. But when they are, you ought to at least thank them. Jesse and I have had many conversations. So the NAACP one day gave me a pink slip. I didn't know. Sister Trudy Grant works with me over there. Raise your hands, Trudy Grant. She does a lot of work in a lot of places. And they let us go in 2014. And in the midst of my anger and profanity, I am from South Carolina. I grew up in Charleston. I have an intimate relationship with profanity. I can curse with the best of them. In fact, I can curse so much that my grandmama would be ashamed of me. But I have learned that profanity well used is better than just a stream of it that does have no purpose whatsoever. Don't you know Reverend Sharpton called me that May, a month later. So I heard you left the association. I said, I didn't leave them, they left me. He said, you come to New York, I want to talk to you. I've known your work for a long time. We've been friends. And I want to know if you'll come work with the National Action Network to be the director of all of our religious outreach. That's how the Lord works. I've been doing it ever since. I say this to you, what I learned from James Brown. One of the greatest poets in American history was from Barnwell, South Carolina. He's not from Augusta. He's from Barnwell.
Yes.
He almost walked to Augusta because his mama walked out, his daddy didn't know what to do, took him to live with his aunt in Augusta, the rest is history. But James Brown had this profound statement I leave with you, especially Marcus, you know I'm on his case all the time. And he said this, what you gonna do, box or boogaloo? And for those who don't, boogaloo is a dance. And what he was saying is, young man, you gonna dance or you gonna fight? Make up your mind. I suggest you organize. I don't care what you call it. We're starting a NAN chapter because the one we have for Tri-County became inactive in Charleston, North Charleston. I got 2 preachers want to help us do the one in East Cooper. And then we got one already going to be organized on the Sea Islands. Any way we can help and get you involved, we want to do it. Malcolm X, in his book, I loved him so much, I never got a chance to meet him, but Betty Shabazz helped me because she told me I was not living a lie. I was not having a delusion. She explained who Malcolm was from her perspective as his wife. And she helped me understand my work was not about organization. It was about being organized. And this book right here, when I had a chance to have her help me understand it, you can see the pages are bad, torn up. I got this book when I was 17 years old. And people who know me know, don't mess with this book. It could cost you your life, or at least an arm. But seriously, no matter how you do this, be organized. Those who want to and are willing, it's going to be organized here. Those from New York, you know the Sharpton has come a long way. Y'all knew Sharpton as the fellow back in the day. But in the city, in his work, he ain't scared. He don't have to be scared. And we got the same alignment. This is my hometown. I've been fighting folk in this town all my adult life. I've been fighting folk in this state all my adult life. I just asked Marcus, as a young leader, learn the lesson the brothers and sisters taught me. I sat at the feet of the masters. I sat one day with J. Arthur Brown, both of the Fieldings, Herbert and Bernard, McKinley Washington, and Bob Woods, and Big John Chisholm. And I asked them, why'd y'all invite me to the meeting? So for 2 reasons. You ain't scared, and you respect your elders. And they've been poured into me for 3 years. Everything I need to know about organizing and being successful. Brothers and sisters, no matter what you do, you must be organized. You must be committed. You must be courageous. And don't sell out my people.
That's right.
We got enough folk who pimp black folk.
That's
Don't
right.
you be one of them. The truth is, we can make a change, but talking alone won't do it. The power to the people is not a slogan. The power to the people is a strategy. Let's employ the strategy while we got a chance. And Malcolm X was the one. I had a chance to sit with Merle Evers in the same house where her husband was killed. Malcolm X reached out to her when her husband was killed. He died at 37 years old. Malcolm died at 39. Martin died at 39. So I have these 4 M's. Medgar, Malcolm, Martin, and the Messiah. Those are the 4 M's. And I've learned down through the years, it will not matter how much stuff I say about me. One day they're gonna check my record. I want them to be able to say, he did what he could while he could. Beloved, Malcolm X taught me, you do what you can while you can. I don't know how long I'm gonna be here, but when it does end, I want them to be able to say, that Negro wasn't scared. God bless you.